Good evening and welcome to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee for February 7th, 2024. If I could ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have one person for public comment to start the meeting. Sean? And this is before we do the budget presentation, right?
Yeah, like Sean Kane, 31 Forest Street. Honestly, my first question was just about the process. Did you want comments or questions about the budget to be during public comment?
Yes.
Not during the public hearing?
During the hearing.
During the hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's it? Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
I had a feeling. Okay. All right, so just to let everybody know what the procedure is, we start with the superintendent's report. He'll give his proposal. We'll hear from John.
Bring him up.
Oh, my mic is not close enough. Okay. There you go. Okay, so we're going to hear from the superintendent with his budget presentation. Then we'll hear from John Stanbrook with the financial. Then we will vote to go into the hearing. Okay? So with that, Jeff?
Thanks, Beth. George, you're going to run the slideshow. Good evening and welcome to our public hearing on the fiscal 25 proposed Whitman-Hanson Regional School District budget. We all know this is a challenging time of year as all department heads and chiefs in both Whitman and Hanson are advocating for their departments and employees. I'm taking a risk here, but I think all town officials and leaders in both communities want a budget that will support their department and the town and also provide the best possible service to the community. The Regional School District budget proposal is no different. The Whitman-Hanson Regional School District is committed to providing a high-quality education to all students. If you read the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, watch the local news or national news, follow people on Instagram, or scroll TikTok, we all know that students in 2024 are much different than the students we had in 2019. Academically, socially, and behaviorally, students have changed, and our teachers and our district has had to change and modify how we deliver our curriculum and keep students engaged in our classrooms. The use of high-quality instructional materials, one-to-one technology, interventionists that help all students, social-emotional supports, a growing English language learner population, and more students receiving special education, both in district and out of district, has increased our budget over the years, and FY25 is no different. The difference this year is the loss of federal assistance to the amount of about $816,000, which we have incorporated into this budget. Our proposed budget for FY25 is exactly the programs and staff that are in place for the school year 23-24. We are not proposing adding services or programs this year. This is truly a level service budget. What is presented tonight is apples to apples, a budget with the exception that everything is just a bit more expensive than last year. With that, I'm going to go to a slide presentation, and people in the gallery can follow along. The Whitman-Hanson Regional School District is committed to providing each student with a high-quality education that promotes student success and responsible citizenship. We have worked on our strategic plan, which is from 2023, approved last June, to 2028, which our bucket area focus areas are student access, communication, curriculum, community and culture, staff, which is recruitment, development, retention, and resources. The budget was worked around the strategic plan. Our strategic objectives are to provide students with a comprehensive learning experience through equitable access to tiered support, develop effective communication strategies that increase mutual understanding, engagement, and empowerment, provide a comprehensive, innovative, and culturally responsive curriculum that fosters engaged and adaptable students who have the foundational skills that can be universally applied in an ever-changing world, provide a welcoming and affirming school environment that removes barriers, one where students, staffs, family, and community members feel valued and have a sense of belonging, create an environment that is diverse, inclusive, and engaging to attract, develop, and retain highly qualified staff, and commit to efficient planning, acquisition, and allocation of fiscal, human, and physical resources to achieve the mission and vision of the district. The budget timeline for FY25, and we are on February 7th at the public hearing. We have a school committee meeting on the 28th, and we've put in tentative meetings and regularly scheduled meetings. Our deadline to give the town of Whitman-Hanson our assessment is March 21st, and usually after that, we have a formal meeting and then another possible if we need to. Town meeting votes on our budget and everybody else's budget on May 6, 2024. As mentioned a little bit, the goals and purpose of our FY25 budget is to maintain the educational plan and services for students that we currently have in place. FY24 ESSER 3 personnel that are back from the general fund or into the general fund for FY25. 11 district paraprofessionals to the tune of $351,388. 1 ELL teacher, which is English language learner, at $90,859, and 4 Unit A staff members to the tune of $375,955. A total of 16 positions, or $818,000, $18,202 for this year. As always, we have anticipated and unanticipated costs in our budget. Anticipated costs, contractual obligations, transportation, staffing, custodial, moving costs from grants to ELA, particularly ESSER funds, our multilingual language enrollment, which Nikki will speak to in a little bit, special education placement costs due to move-ins, and the increase of student mental health needs and behavioral supports, special education increases in services and placements, which Mike Loach will touch upon. We have increased, and I'm so happy with our class sizes as we've moved into smaller class sizes from the time that I was a building level principal, even through 2018. So if you look at our class size projections in 2025, we are well or close to class sizes of 21 in all elementaries, if not a little bit lower. The question marks are for grade K. We don't know yet. We had an anomaly at Duval a couple of years ago where there was only 53 that registered for K, but most class sizes are under 20 or in that 20 range. Hanson Middle, Whitman Middle are appropriately class sized at the 20 some odd range, and the next page over is our high school, which as we get going into the budget process, I will give you an enrollment projection for the high school in the next 4 years, but our high school enrollment is decreasing. Right now, scheduled for grade 9 are 271 students coming out of 8th grade. We average between 60 and 70 students going to vocational schools, going to private schools, or charter school somewhere else. So I take 65 out. Our freshman class is going to be the lowest class we've had in years. So I'm looking at a class of 206, class of 245, 267, and 264. A number that we don't speak much of are our community evening school students. We have 28 students that the district supports as well in community evening school, and our preschool academy in both full day and half day programs is at 117. Sped, Mike, if you don't mind.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see from the slide above, we are still having a full continuum of services across the district. We are in the process of really evaluating programs to ensure we have programs placed appropriately and we're meeting all students' needs across the district. From our end, in terms of how the school year has went and looking at students' needs, we definitely have concerns on the social emotional impact of our students, especially at the middle and secondary level. We're definitely seeing an increase of students really needing things like counseling, behavioral support, and this is, having also impact potentially for our out-of-district budget. We are looking to develop a professional development plan to really support these teachers in our schools to make sure they have the right necessary tools to support our students and also to keep them in the least restrictive environment.
Nick.
So this slide here represents our multilingual learner enrollment, also known as our English learners, as of February 1st, 2024. In October, I shared a similar table, and at that time, our overall enrollment was 231 students. So you can see that our number has appeared to have plateaued. However, please understand that this number of 233 somewhat hides our new enrollments that we are constantly receiving because we have students who are also leaving our district. As Jeff noted, educating multilingual learners can present both anticipated and unanticipated costs, especially when you look at the growth we've experienced in 2 years, and that's at the bottom there for you, and the consequent impact on our FTEs. While we don't expect another 200% increase, it was actually a 198% increase from 2022 to over the course of the years, last 2 years, we do anticipate continued growth. And notably, with our students, like with our students with special needs, there are legal requirements and DESE mandates with educating our multilingual learners. This spring, our district is entering our DESE compliance review. One of the factors I have to show is that we are in compliance with certifications and appropriate staffing, which I am pleased and proud to say that we are. And after speaking with neighboring districts, this is not always the case. So we are doing really well in that regard. Next slide, please.
Hold on a sec, Nick. Just on this piece, and I mentioned this at the Whitman Finance Committee, there's a lot in the news right now of migrants and across the state of Massachusetts, the school districts having to educate students that have just moved in that are homeless. This is not that. We do not have any of those students in our district. Right now, we don't have housing, so nobody's being placed. Our neighbors all around us are being impacted by that, but this is not. This is just direct residents of either the town of Whitman or Hanson that has increased 198% over the past 2 years.
And I see, and I'll correct that, that should say September 2021, 2 years ago. It was the school year of 21-22. We started at 78. Okay, so this slide here is important because just as I mentioned with our Ls, the district must adhere to legal requirements and DESE mandates. We are making curricular decisions that are based on research, and our students are experiencing educational growth, and George and I will present that data next month. We are doing this because it is right for our students. But but what this slide shows you is that there also are laws, regulations, and DESE mandates that we and Whitman-Hanson are obligated to comply with. And these include, as Jeff mentioned, high-quality, evidence-based instructional materials, screenings for our K-3 students, and interventions and enrichment. Again, we are in compliance. And notably, George and I had the opportunity to present our current MTSS model at a national conference in the fall. And I'm quite proud of the work that we're doing here, and I have to comment that other states were really impressed with the work that is being done here as well and have asked for our resources and our feedback. So I thought this was an important slide to share because we are doing things that are expected of us, but they're also right for our students. And then the next slide, I'm going to pass it off.
All right, so what does all this mean? This means that we're trying to do the right thing for the students that we have in our schools. If you look at the academic-related supports that we have, in this district, we have 3 district-based interventionists. We've talked about what interventionists are, and they're the individuals that help our students, that gather the data, that form our intervention groups, and that work with our staff and students, that work with our staff and teachers in the buildings. We have 12 building-based interventionists. If you remember, we never had that. We have them in both as far as teachers in math and ELA, and as far as paraprofessionals in math and ELA. We have 5 district-wide curriculum coordinators spanning all of our subjects. We have 1 secondary data specialist, and then we have what we need to help students not only in the academic realm, but also in the social-emotional realm. We have 5 BCBAs. BCBA is a board-certified behavioral analyst. That's the people that help students who maybe have a little trouble regulating themselves, maybe have a little trouble behaving and doing what they need to do, so they work with our staffs and our teachers and our students directly. We have 7 school psychologists. Our school psychologists are responsible for all of not only working with students and counseling, but also doing all of the testing that takes place to see where students are at, to see if they need to go on an IEP or anything of that nature. We have 10 adjustment counselors. Our adjustment counselors we have at every school. We did not have that in 2018. A lot of these things we did not have that up to 5-6 years ago. We have a transition room at both the Hanson Middle School and at the high school here. Transition room is for those students who either have an issue that takes place in their life that maybe or might not require some type of hospitalization. Sometimes those hospitalizations are as easy as, not as easy, but you have a concussion. You have something that takes place. You have a appendix burst and you're out for 2 weeks. You can utilize this room so that you can then slowly get back to the academic rigor that you missed. It also helps our students who have a social emotional deficit or who may be hospitalized or may be receiving treatment for any mental health issue that they may have. And we also were proud of Mike was able to bring in with our high school and Jeff, Care Solace. Care Solace is an outside agency that anyone can be a part of, and that we pay a fee, and it's for virtual or live mental health support. It is available for our students, it is available for our staff, and it's also available for the families of the staff and students. So it's something that we're proud of, and it's something that we have, and it's something that we need. I just mentioned that these are the programs that are added in the last 5 years. So this wasn't here prior to Jeff taking over. I'll say it. So we're proud of what we've done. We now have elementary curriculum in K-5 in math, English, and science. We finally have a middle school social studies curriculum. We now have an ELA and math program in grades 6 through 8. I want to let you know that our staff has done a wonderful job for the last 20 years that I've been here, in every school and before that. But we never gave them the tools that they actually needed, that are research-based, that are scientifically based, that do improve student learning, that we now can offer. We have added special education teachers for co-teaching. We're trying to get away from, and we've done a nice job of getting away from the students who just need a little bit of help to go to a separate classroom. We now have co-teaching models where they can partake in the curriculum as everyone else. Again, we have interventionists. We now have WIN blocks. We've talked about WIN blocks. We've talked about intervention blocks. But as far as next year, we will now be K-12 in our WIN blocks. That is 30 to 35 minutes every day, that every student gets what they need based on where they are at. Not where the teacher feels they're at, not where the school feels they're at, but based where they're at on diagnostic testing that's part of our curriculum. So that we are seeing increased gains, and we are seeing gains where students are now getting closer to either where they're at, their grade level and progressing, or bringing them up from lower grade levels. Like Jeff said, we have elementary classes, under 21 in most classrooms. All students now have one-to-one student electronic devices, and what people might not realize is the amount of translation services and the staff to help our English language learners. You know, sometimes people look at an English language learner and they say, oh, that poor kid doesn't understand English. Well, that poor kid's probably smarter than most of us in this room here, because they have dual language and they are now succeeding in their home language, and now we're trying to have them succeed in the second language. So that's an addition. That is not a deficit for those students. Again, our growing special education programs, we're trying to do what's best for students who live in Whitman-Hanson to keep them in this school district as much as we can. We now have tuition-free full-day kindergarten, and we have things like expanded unified sports at the high school, Best Buddies now at the middle school to help all of our students feel included and part of the growing and positive culture. We have enrichment programs at the high school and also the middle school. The goal now is to have that enrichment program at the Hanson Middle School also next year, so that students can get what they need, not only academically and behaviorally, but also socially, and then learn other skills, and then have something to do after school, and then transportation is provided so they can go on from there. And then we have innovation pathways at the high school. That's something that the high school brought in, the high school administration, and that is something that's going to be developing, but basically that's pre-vocational skills, not in a Chapter 74, those people are already asking that, not in a Chapter 74 way, but it's pre-vocational skills that students can take classes in, have a track in. One of them is health and sciences, one of them is going to be in a business track, so that they can receive actual live experience and actual live certifications and things such like that. So when they leave here, if college is not in their future at the moment, they will have livable, doable skills that they can become productive members of society right after high school graduation. So those are some of the things that we've added in the last 5 years. Now we're going back to the numbers, so I'm going to turn it back to Jeff. That was a fun one.
Yeah, right.
Nope.
The other way.
Did it the wrong way.
Yeah. So this slide we've added for years, and this slide used to be, we're in the bottom third in the state of Massachusetts. We're in the bottom 8 at one point in the state of Massachusetts. I'm very thankful and grateful for the town of Whitman-Hanson to say tonight that we're not in the bottom third. We're not up at the top tier, but we've made some strong gains, and I think what George just presented to you and to the community are the pieces that you're paying for. We are above some of our communities on the South Shore. What I'm concerned about is regressive, because I think what we have going is pretty good for all of our students. And when I say all is all, that's one of our mantras now. It's every student in the district, pre-K to 22. Next slide, George, please. So looking at our budgets over the past few years, you see the average increase. We never want to go back to FY16. This year, the bottom line, we're looking at a 4.74 increase of the district budget, percentage-wise. It really looks like 5.13 when we add the middle school debt, which John will get into at some point. But overall, for the assessment value of the district, we're looking at a 4.74 increase this year to maintain level services. Next page are all the numbers, and I'll go through them. Thanks, John, for putting together the budget book and these numbers. So this year's budget is 1B on your sheet. We're looking for $63,590,845, which is an increase of $3,105,687, which is that 5.13 increase, because that's our overall budget. 1D, if we voted today, if I cross my fingers and both towns were in agreement, this is what we need. The town of Whitman would be assessed at 11.03, or $19,695,553. The town of Hanson's assessment would be 10.20, or $15,325,369. That's the 4.74%. That's what I need for level service. Mary Beth and Lisa Green, both TAs, we spoke in November, and they did tell me where they were allocating, and I said I would get to that allocation for the district, but I had to present to the school committee what we needed, what I need, going with the wind analogy. 2B, if we had a 2% increase of the budget, would be $61,694,861. That would get me at 2%. That would leave a budget reduction of $1.8 million if it was a 2% increase. Line 2E would be Whitman's operating assessment at $18,529,713, which would be a 4.45 assessment. 2G is Hanson's operating assessment at $14,595,000, or 226, which is a 4.95% assessment. A 3% increase of our budget would be 3B, $62,299,713. That would leave a reduction on the school district of $1.291132. Whitman's operating assessment would be $18,901,636, or a 6.55% increase of the assessment. And Hanson's operating would be $14,828,154, or 6.62. That would be a 3% increase. 4% increase is $62,904,564. The reduction for a 4% would be $686,281. Whitman's operating assessment, or number, would be $19,273,559 with an 8.63 operating assessment, and Hanson's would be $15,061,082 with an 8.30 assessment. Those are the numbers that we have now. Presented the level service piece with reductions, potentially, or number reductions as they go. Just for the committee and for the public, I've been speaking to area superintendents, and I'm asking folks to watch across the towns what's happening. I have a meeting on Friday, but local, some of our locals, Middleborough, Norton, are looking at double-digit increases of their overall budget, 11 to 13%. Local areas, Marshfield's looking for 7. The school district, the town might have allocated 3-5. People are all looking for 3+, 4, 5, 6, and then the outliers are 10 and 13. I will get more, and I will put that publicly for the committee to see where people are at. Not everybody's responded to my request. We're just trying to service our students the best we can. I believe we've done a nice job, and I think, George, what did we say? Between ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3 funding, we are close to $4.6 million in federal aid. We've been able to work federal aid into the district budgets for the support of students. It wasn't just a one-time expenditure. We've been able to work that into giving our students what they need. This year, it's an $800,000 hit to the district. However, even with that, everything's gone up with inflation. Our contracts are set this year, but we will start negotiations for FY26 probably this summer, early fall. So I'm just letting folks know where we're at. This is the budget that I'm comfortable presenting to the community, to the school committee. It's as is what we have today. If the committee moves forward, we will. This is springtime in Whitman. I'm used to it. We get to it with collegiality, with cooperation, and with transparency. John Stamberg, I'm going to ask to come up next. Put together a budget book of 40-some-odd documents. I don't expect everybody to have memorized them, but it's pretty detailed, soup to nuts. He's going to briefly go over some of that and what he's done, but that's online already for members of the community. We will have a separate link for the district budget. As people have questions both from the community and from the committee and from both boards, please email myself or Beth questions. We will answer those questions and post them. You don't have to wait for the next school committee meeting. We're going to try to keep this live as we go, but I'm hoping to make sure that our students are adequately serviced and we have a good number come May 6th at town meeting. So John, if you want to.
Thank you. There's 43 documents. That's a few more than last year. I won't go through all of them one by one, although they're all gold. So I'll just go over the new ones that you haven't seen from last year. The one-page summary was the one page that that's the first document, 0. That's what the superintendent just went over. Document 2 is the general fund revenue that we 1 and 2 we did have last year, but I just want to briefly go over document 2. That's the revenue page. Again, it's 5.13% for an increase, 4.74% if you take out the new in fiscal year 25 $240,000 Whitman Middle School building project debt assessment. That's the assumption as of right now, $6 million being borrowed at 4%.
Can I just stop you for a minute, John?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to clarify too, because I know this question is going to come. Hanson is not going to be paying anything on the Whitman Middle School project. It shows in the budget, but just for clarity, I know somebody out there is going to put on social media, are we paying for it because it's in the budget? It is in the budget because it's a borrowing on behalf of the school, but it's not part of the Hanson assessment. Thanks, Sean.
Okay. And then just down the bottom is a reiteration of what the superintendent was talking about with a 2%, a 3%, and a 4% increase. Documents 3 and 4 is the expenditure detail broken down by line. We had that last year. Documents 4 through 12 you had last year. It's just a breakdown of every school expenditure, every expenditure by school in the general fund, and then district-wide. Document 12 is the special education circuit breaker revenue and circuit breaker expenditures details with the assumptions that are in there. Again, you had that last year. Documents 13, 14, 15, and 16 are the graphs. Those are the ones I like. They're easy to see pie charts. You had those last year. Document 17 is the FY25 debt assumptions. Again, very quickly for a thumbnail is a sketch of what the debt assumptions are. What I said earlier, the Whitman Middle School building project is $6 million at a 4% rate for a bond anticipation note. So that's $240,000. Also, Whitman will be, it's assumed that they'll be paying off the Whitman feasibility study debt of $500,000. So that won't be in the FY25 budget. Also, on the Hanson side, there'll be some reductions on the middle school and HVAC systems. There were two separate borrowings for that. There'll be some pay downs on those things, and those are the assumptions that are on the page on document 17.
Okay, before you continue, John, I think important to repeat the percentage that we were able to bond at for the new middle school is 4% versus we thought 5.5.
I just put in a 4% as a budget
Right.
for right now.
But
We haven't
that's what-
bonded yet.
We haven't bonded yet, but
right.
we've heard that it's much better than it was going to.
Rates tend to be dropping, but anything...
Yeah, we don't, never know, but,
We don't want to lock John into a number right now.
right.
I have to have a number, so that's the number I
Yeah,
picked.
that's a good one.
I believe that came from the town administrator, Mary Beth, in a previous, probably a January Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. I tuned into the good part.
Fred?
You know, just to clarify, that number is based on the band.
Dan.
We won't be going out to bond for at least a year after.
Yes.
So, you know, it may be a much more favorable interest rate environment as of then.
Right.
And I believe that the place that the 4% came from was in a meeting with bond counsel and Unibank, I believe.
Our financial advisor, yes.
Yeah. You know, and that was, you know, their quote-unquote professional opinion. But we know what opinions are.
Here you go, Jim.
Okay. And then on documents 18 and 19 are the mandated and the non-mandated busing calculations. You've seen those before. We've talked about them in previous meetings. Those are 18 and 19, and then a comparison. Documents 20 and 21 are the assessment methodology, step by step, how you come up with the numbers for the assessments to both towns. In previous years, I've gone through every step, but I think we get it. I think we get the steps now. I hope so. Document 22 is the budget assumptions that are in this whole group of things. Document 23 is a budget analysis between FY19 and FY25. You've seen that before. Documents 24 is a school choice analysis. You've seen that before. Just what we're doing with school choice, that revolving fund. Document 26 is the school grants by state code. Document 25 was the school grants analysis. You've seen that document before. Document number 26, school grants by state code is a new one. It's our FY24 grants by the way that it's sorted out in GEMS, and I'm trying to find my paper, I can't find it, but I think it's Grants Education Management System.
Yes.
So it's a...
Good guess.
It's where we get the money and where we've allocated it in the budget for fiscal year '24. I don't think you've seen a document like that before, but that's every grant that we have in fiscal year '24 and where it's been allocated so far. Again, we get a grant tomorrow. Obviously, it's not on this page. I can't, I'm not a modern day Nostradamus. I can't tell you what tomorrow will bring. But as of right now, that's where we are on the grants. The documents 27 and 28, 29, those are all the hold harmless, and we've seen those before. They're just a reiteration for this year with the new numbers. And then after 29 is 30 to 41, something new this year. From the discussions from the last budget cycle last year, you wanted to see more detail into how, what makes up each line item in the budget for salaries. So, what I was able to do was put the people, but I was able to put each school's person that works there and, where they are and where the money comes from in order to come up with the totals in the budget for fiscal year '25. You may see things in the fiscal year '24 budget line where it's in a negative or it's in a positive. And again, this is the configuration the way the superintendent wants to see it for fiscal year '25, which may or may not be the configuration where it is now. This is the configuration that the superintendent wants for FY '25, which may change where things are in '24. So you may see pluses or minuses there. So that's a breakdown of every single salary and, what comes, who is in there without people's names, everything else other than their name. And then documents 42 is the location positions analysis. You had that last year. It's based on documents 30 to 41. And then the last document came out of last year's budget cycle questions. The committee wanted to see, the highlight, what were the big movers. I think last year it was $100,000 one way or another, what the line items were. So I added that to this year. I picked $150,000, so it wasn't a little bit shorter of a document. So those are the line items that have changed more than $150,000 or less than $150,000, and then the explanation of why that happened. Just to see, what's going on with those lines. So I tried to think of everything that you asked for, and I tried to put it in this budget for the next coming fiscal year. I gave it everything I had here, so that's all I have.
So just a couple things while John is still up there. One of the issues, or one of the things that we were doing as we were projecting, especially state revenues, we know now that the state is broke, or at least they're telling me that they're broke. So we're lowballing some of our reimbursables, where last year we highballed our reimbursables and got bit. So meaning transportation, homeless, different things that the state would reimburse us, we took a lower number. Now, if they come in high over the summer, that's great, but the outlook right now isn't necessarily positive. And we did send out a letter inviting our state reps and our senator to be here tonight. They will be here on the 28th. I spoke to Rep. Sullivan today. It is her birthday. I wished her happy birthday and said it'd be great if you can come on the 28th with Senator Brady and Representative DeCoste to be here if you have questions. I said tonight is a hearing. Sometimes people are absorbing the information. If you come in a couple weeks, we can hammer you with questions and be ready for that. So it was a good conversation. The other piece that we were really cautiously optimistic, and John said, he just kept telling me don't be, was on the Student Opportunities Act. We ended up with really nothing this year. It's $30 a student, and I will be posting online when we finish this what the MASS, Mass Association of School Superintendents, has put out as a total Chapter 70 revenue to each city and town in the Commonwealth as far as Chapter 78. Who are the winners, who are the losers? There are a lot of folks that just got a 30% or a $30 increase on students, which, John, I think they came up to $110,000 for us. Some towns locally, I know Stoughton got $2.9 million. Next door in Abington, they got a little bit more. But the state didn't bail us out. In fact, if you look at the Hold Harmless page that we were excited about, going to $400,000 last year, we're now back in the almost $1 million in Hold Harmless. So hopefully things can change in the future, but we are not, although we are heavily reliant upon the state for Chapter 70, we've learned to be cautious, especially around the reimbursables that fluctuate and the shell game of the state. Oh, we're going to give you $60 more per student last year, and I'm not knocking the state too much, but $60 per year, but our charter school reimbursables went down by $30 a kid. So it just moved. We didn't gain any money, we just moved it to a different line. So I appreciate John for putting together this detailed document. I also want to just let the public know, people, the VIPs, the boards here, John did this all by hand. Our software system still isn't able to do this. This was all by hand. All these documents were presented to him by hand. We spent a tremendous amount of time looking at salaries and making sure that we had the appropriate salary in the line items for everybody's salary next year, so we weren't over budgeting or under budgeting, so we wouldn't have, we got as close to those salary line items as we possibly could per contractual pieces. Feel it took us, it was labor intensive, but I feel very good about that because we know where people stand. We were very, we tried to be extremely frugal on our percentages in other line items, what we spent in the past, so we weren't over budgeting for the future. So this is really a tight budget for us, and that's why when I say it's truly a level service, it's a level service tight budget. If the state comes forward with more money in September, in August, it'd be great. If they come in with reimbursables over 70% in transportation, that would be great, but I'm not holding my breath. I would rather be on this side than on this side and having to cut like we ended up doing last summer. So I just want to again publicly thank John for putting this together, because it's very detailed, with information that wasn't the push of a keystroke.
Fred?
John, thank you. This is a wonderful document. My question is, can you possibly identify, and obviously with the will of the committee, the unfunded mandates and place a dollar amount to them somehow for, you know, the meeting that our state reps will be at, or if it's the will of the committee to send a letter as well to the state reps along with the state senator. Mr.
So Fred, I would say underfunded and unfunded.
Okay.
Because underfunded is transportation. It's always underfunded. Special education, circuit breaker, and reimbursables, underfunded. Because they've committed 100% in SOA, and we're not getting that. So if that's the will of the committee, we can put something together for them.
And I gladly make that motion if the chair would be seeking that.
Second.
Okay. All right, so we need to have a vote then. We have to vote.
Roll call.
A roll call because Michelle's online. So Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Chris? Glenn?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Michelle? Yes. And me, yes.
So I'll put something together, we'll work together, look at everything district-wide, and that's soup to nuts, and we'll put together a letter and try to itemize that as best we can, and have that ready for the 28th.
I don't know if it does any good, but at least it's...
We sent a lot of letters. You want to open the public hearing?
Yep, okay. Now we're going to vote to open the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, and Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
Glenn? Dawn? Yes. Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Michelle? Yes. And me, Beth, yes. Okay,
If anyone has any questions or comments, or
come on up.
we might not be able to answer every question here today, but I would like to field questions, write them down. Jen will write them down and we'll answer those questions either at our next meeting or online.
And it's not 5 items or less, right?
No.
Thanks. Sean Kane, 31 Forest Street. Thank you for Mr. Stanberg's work. I'm a big fan of his work, honestly. I'm always impressed, and I think this year he's really outdone himself, so thank you. I do have a couple questions about document number 1. It's a 3-page document. If you go to the bottom of the 3rd page, just a quick question about the, where it talks about the, total programs with other districts.
Oh, okay.
It's the very last, like, 4 or 5 lines before the very last line. And it says that there's a $2 million decrease to tuition to mass schools and a $2 million decrease to tuition to collaboratives. That'd be a $4 million decrease to both of those lines. Is that accurate?
I don't have that answer in front of me. Okay.
That's circuit breaker
That's
money?
circuit breaker, right there.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. And then this has the FY '24 and then FY '25. And you said that in the presentation on the PowerPoint, you said that there's about 16 total positions at $800,000.
Yes.
That really is a result of the ESSER fund decrease.
For this year, yes.
But if you look on the, again, on the third page, no, I'm sorry, at the bottom of the second page, where it says budget by function and type, it says total administration, it says 15.3% increase for next year.
Where is it? What page, Sean? I'm sorry.
On the second page of document number 1,
Yep.
at the bottom is where it starts to break down the budget by function, the difference between FY24 and FY25.
Yep.
And this says total administration, it's up about $225,000, and it's a 15.38% increase.
Okay. I'd have to look right now for you, but
Okay.
I'll note that, okay?
Yep. It's kind of similar question with total instruction. It says it's up about $3.2 million, and that's a 9.5% increase. So I had similar kind of questions about that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's connected to the slide that you
I
shared?
would believe so. I would believe so, but I'll answer that question for you.
Right, and then just lastly on that number 1, on the very first page, it says that Whitman assessment is at $20,500,000 instead of the 19.6.
Yep.
Just wondering if that just hasn't been updated, or if there's just a calculation that's not included there.
John, do you know that answer?
I'm still looking for the first one.
So on page 1 of 3 in document 1, FY25 general fund revenues, I have Hanson assessments at 15.6 and Whitman at 20,500,863.
That's all the assessments, not just the operating assessment.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll get those two other for you, Sean?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Justin Evans, 57 Candlewick Lane. First, thank you all for doing this. You're about to go through a very difficult period preparing this budget. We are as well, so I sympathize with you. And thanks, John, again. This afternoon opened up 44 documents and didn't know where to start. Looking at I kind of want to bring it back to the same thing I said last year. So the town is projecting in the general budget, excluding enterprise, because we can't use ratepayer funds for non-utility purposes. Sean and Mary Beth presented last night about $1.2 million in new revenue. Your initial level services assessment to the town of Whitman is about 1.9, a little north of that, in new expenses. So just off of the bat, we've got a disconnect in how much money the town's taking in this year versus how much the school budget's going up. If you watched our meeting last night, you'd know that if the schools come in at 5%, we're still $1 million short in our projections. So we've got some work to do on our side too. But I just wanted to kind of lay that out there as well, that your initial projections for what the assessment of the towns looks like is greater than what we're projected to take in. And I think Sean mentioned the ESSER funds. I also wanted to ask, I assume the answer is yes, but last year there was a $500,000 in E&D added to the budget as well. There's no E&D currently in this?
There is no E&D in this budget.
Projection? Okay. So that's 1.3 million in one-time funds coming back into the budget, just in ESSER and E&D. Okay.
Understood. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay.
Close public comment.
All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at this point in time.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dawn? Yes. Steve?
Yes.
And Michelle? Yes. And myself, yes. And so the public hearing is closed.
Thank you so much, folks.
Now,
Chair, sorry.
oh, yes.
Can I still add a question or comment
sure.
regarding this? I didn't know if you were moving on to the next agenda item, but
You could.
I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So thank you for the work on the budget book. And my first note is we've come a long way, right? And we've provided certainly some services, the needs of the students sorry, I just need to reference a note that I made. But I think what George alluded to, this is the cost of education, right? This is what we're providing now, this is the cost. I have some questions that I'll get to you because I don't want to bore everyone by going through them right now. One question, which I don't know if it's in here, is in looking at, right, document 0, the one with the current budget, and then the 2%, 3%, 4%. Do you know what the budget dollar amount increase is for only the salary contractual obligations? So if we can get that number to know what the dollar amount is just to honor what we need to pay our staff currently, because then the number over that would be more or less discretionary expenses, right? We could level fund every pencil, every book, or every clinic supply, and that could be a discussion. But if we can know what that is.
Sure, I would just be cautioned to say level fund everything. Just out, we're saying that insurance rates, I can't level fund, certain things like that.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Right, and
So,
yeah, you're right. We didn't even dig
certain
into
things like that, but, you know,
health
that's why-
insurance, right? And we
Those are
have,
those are not salary line items, but those are obligations that are out of our control.
right. I guess that's a good reminder to let folks know that aren't familiar with the regional school district budget, right? We have central office, we have payroll, we run health insurance, benefits, utilities, insurance, those are all in our budget, not in the municipal town budgets. And I really wanted to mention that I have some thoughts that are still sort of lingering from last year, April 18th, right? We sat in town hall, and I sat there and listened to a Board of Selectmen say that our budget was unprofessional at that moment. We never really got to discuss that, and we moved on, and we used E&D, and the towns used one-time funds, and it was all called unsustainable, and so here we are now, present day. And I listened to the Whitman Board of Selectmen meeting last night, and I saw what they're presenting, and I heard the word override, and I heard that it was mentioned that the schools may need to consider that. So I think, to be right up front, I do want to make sure there's an understanding of how an override is handled by a municipality and the legality of that, right? So there was questions over schools from the municipality and the Board of Selectmen's point of view. And right now, I know the Whitman town budget, there's 4 schools. Whitman town is responsible for 4 regional school assessments. There's a South Shore Vocational Regional, there's a Norfolk Agricultural Regional, there's a Bristol Plymouth Regional, and there's a Whitman-Hanson Regional. So I'm obviously very focused on Whitman-Hanson Regional, but I'm just going to be straightforward and say I'm tired of this district being the punching bag for a budget from a town that needs to be looked at across the board, right? Expenses across the board. So each of these regional schools are setting assessments and sending it to the towns. And then it will be up to the towns to decide how they want to fund it. Ultimately, it's really up to the taxpayer. It's the taxpayer at town meeting. So we know that regional schools, we review our budget, we'll set that, we'll look at it responsibly. I think this budget is amazingly transparent. It shows where our spending is. Thank you for that. It just needs to be partnership and collaboration. And it can't be that there's one department that needs to solve this problem, if you will, that's being said, where revenues don't meet expenses. Also in the presentation, I noticed that the Madden report was mentioned again, and it wasn't until it came to the school's budget. And suddenly it's 5%, and that's it. But 5% does not satisfy our contractual obligations. I think we just have to realize the importance of our needs and set a budget that meets the students' needs. And if there's going to be talk of an override, then that has to come from the municipality that's going to make that decision based on all the needs of the town and all of those schools. Thank you.
Next one. Anyone else? Heather?
I just had a question. I'm trying to find it. Jeff, do you know what the increase to South Shore Voc Tech's overall budget was? Was it close to 5%?
It was what was in the paper, I
Was
think,
like-
was like close to 5%.
So do we know how that breaks down for the towns?
I don't.
Okay.
It's based on the student population
Sure.
percentage, so I don't know. I know Whitman is one of the larger percentages that send students to South Shore Voc Tech. And I'll just add, on behalf of Lisa and Mary Beth, they don't know right now who's going to Bristol Aggie or Norfolk Aggie. They can't find that out until April. So right now, the process for those students is applying, so they're throwing darts at a board. So, I'm trying to work with those two folks, because they're working very hard, because they don't know a number. And all of a sudden, they get an application. I have one so far for next year with the other students. There could be 10 freshmen that go, there could be 2. And those are, I think, $26,000 a pop, plus transportation. So it's very difficult for them. I'm advocating for my budget, absolutely, but I also know that's a moving target for both communities, and that's difficult.
And Jeff, is that part of that incoming freshman minus 65 number?
So we're going to send, the bulk of those students will go to South Shore Vocational.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to have some arbitrary other students going to Bristol Aggie and Norfolk Aggie.
Yeah.
Most of those students aren't coming back. They used to come back. They're not. They're staying there. So they have some good retention, and we can kind of fix that, but it's different. I know South Shore Vocational Tech is starting to limit towns because they've just accepted Marshfield into their district, or into the regional. And I know Pembroke is applying, so that might decrease the numbers or set a limit. So Mary Beth and Lisa can say, I know 7 kids are going to be accepted. That's it. The challenge is when the other kids that get accepted from different towns open up a slot, and then Mr. Boyce decides to go September 1st, and Mary Beth gets a bill September 3rd for first quarter payment. So that's a moving target. That's a question I'd like to ask the state representatives about setting a timeline around our vocationals, because there's a lot of talk on Beacon Hill about vocational schools along with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to go to our new business. And we have line item transfers and unpaid bills. John?
Wait, it's a play.
This is the exciting piece, right, guys?
You saw a first draft of the transfers, I think it was a couple months ago. These are the final transfers that need to be done in order to close up for fiscal year '23. If you were to approve these transfers tonight, tomorrow morning I'll be filing the balance sheet with the Department of Revenue for fiscal year '23. And fiscal year '23 will be officially closed when they approve the balance sheet. I don't know how long it will take them to do it, but they'll have it tomorrow morning if these transfers go through. So very quickly on the document 1 of the transfers was a breakdown of where the $650,000 went on the breach-related costs that we had taken out of excess and deficiency, or E&D. And again, it was a 479,044 were on direct breach-related costs, then 53,000 were for treasurer's help and help doing W-2s by hand. Business and other was payroll company charges. We used to put them into Munis used to charge us, and now we have a payroll company because we don't have Munis going yet, and that was in that business and other line item. 64,000 went to tech overtime, and the other 13,000 went to additional paper that we needed because we're doing everything on paper. So that's document number 1. Documents 2 and 3 are well, first of all, document 2 is the within the function transfers. Those are the ones that would be within the, the large numbers like 1,000 to 1,999 is total administration. These are the ones that I guess technically I could do and then just report on, but I'd rather have you vote on them all. The total of all of them is $2,595,787.61. Those are the within the function transfers, and there are 194 of them. And the document 3 is the interfunction transfers, or the ones that go in between the large function items, things like administration to debt service or employee retirement, things like that. Last year, we had 7.1% of transfers in the budget. This year is about 7.26. We had 7.1, and then we had another 75,000 again. So it's about the same as last year on transfers. Again, on the document 3, the interfund budget transfers, there are 45 of them with a total of 1.650208040, or 2.82% of the budget. So document 2 is 4.44% of the budget. That's within the functions, and then interfunction is 2.82. And then document 4 is a breakdown that if you were to approve these transfers tonight, what each line item would look like as far as transfers in and out. Again, this is an appropriations and expenditure schedule. Starts with the encumbered amount, then the original budget, your transfers from E&D, and then line item transfers, interfunction, and then interfunction, the final budget, the expenditures, and how much was closed and how much was encumbered for next year. So this is the last step to close out fiscal year '23.
So I really got to thank you for putting this together. So easy to follow, so detailed.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the work.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
Okay.
Keep going. I can hear more.
Guy like me.
Okay.
Random transfers as presented.
Second.
Okay. And so Fred?
No discussion.
Oh, yes, sorry, any discussion? No? Right?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
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 Seth? John?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steven?
Yes.
And Michelle? Michelle, you still there? Yes. Okay. And me, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Next is the unpaid bills. So we haven't had them, I don't know if we had any last year, but we've had them in previous years. Again, walking through the documents, this is the, document 1 is the law about unpaid bills, and it does say that, it refers to a town and a city, but then you look at the last line on page 2, this section shall also apply to districts, and I think we're districts, so these are unpaid bills, or amounts, bills that have come in after the books have been closed, so there's no appropriation for that year to pay for it. So what I'm going to ask you to do tonight is to pay these unpaid bills on document 2 out of fiscal year '24's appropriation, and that takes a vote. So there are 3 of them. They're Academic Partners, Crisis Prevention Institute, and North River Collaborative. This is on document 2, and I have the amounts and the funding sources where I would propose to pay for them out of the fiscal year '24 budget. And then the other documents are the actual bills themselves, and my notes on them.
Okay, can I have a motion for questions
So moved.
Second.
and discussion? No discussion? Okay. Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve? Michelle? Yes. And me, yes.
That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you,
All
John.
done.
John.
Thanks, John.
So as you know, I've accepted the resignation of John, and I really appreciate what he's put together. So we posted the position immediately after that on SchoolSpring and on Indeed. And viable candidates were, no one was certified in school business, and nobody really had any experience in school business. So I got to talking to some of my local superintendents about folks that they know who may be interested in moving or looking for another district. And I found Steve Marshall. So I shot a text to Steve. Steve, if you want to come up to the podium, shot a text to Steve and said, would you be interested in sending me your materials so I could review? Steve's currently in Canton. I know the superintendent in Canton very well. And I said, would you be willing to have a conversation with my central office team about as being a candidate for employment here? And Steve said yes. So we interviewed with my central office team. We found him to be exceptional. And I brought him in to meet with Beth. So as the school committee chair, we could have a conversation. So today, I'm asking you to support my recommendation and hiring of Steve Marshall as the new Director of Business and Finance, pending a successful negotiation of a contract. I don't think, okay.
He's got the name, I mean, we've got 1, 2, and 3.
I'm gonna say, which Steve we talking
It'll be
about?
Steve Cube, right?
So I'm the 1V, I mean, you know, whatever.
You all have his resume. I think it doesn't have, you can have that motion, but maybe if you want to ask him any questions, you certainly can. He comes with very, very good references. Again, I know the superintendent well. I've known him for 15 years. I spoke to the assistant superintendent and director of student services. I'm very confident in his ability in municipal town government work as the director of business in Canton. We spoke about the learning curve in a regional, which we will, I think, George and I have gone up and down with regional stuff for a while, so we're pretty proficient in it. But I think Steve's also a good student, and we will provide that support for him. And we will have somebody mentor him as he comes into our district.
And before I ask Fred, I mentioned to Jeff that you might say, well, gee, did we leave it up long enough? Unfortunately, once we started doing this and got nothing, there were even more towns that started looking, more districts that were looking. So it would have taken even, if there was anybody more. So there was really nothing. So by just by Jeff looking to the other superintendents and seeing if anybody around to do it that way was the only really way to get somebody qualified who is certified and ready to go. So, yes, Dawn?
What's the anticipated start date?
So right now I'm working, if Steve accepts and we negotiate, he would start July 1st officially, but both Derek and I had said that might be a fluctuation in June as well.
So that he can work with Dawn. Fred, did you have a question?
Derek's the superintendent, I'm
Did you
sorry.
have some questions for the gentleman?
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
I notice that it seems to be about a 2-year period for every employer, over the past so many years. Is there an explanation?
Yeah, so...
Then I have a follow-up.
Okay. It might read that way on my resume. I spent about 10 years with Aramark. I spent in multiple different districts, but with the same employer, working as a food service director as a contracted service provider within different school districts. So that was a long period of time. I did leave and spend some time outside of public schools, working for a startup company that was ultimately sold off, and I came back into public schools. At that point, I decided to go back to school, get my MBA, and decided that I wanted to really pursue a business manager position. And at that point, I went to Newton, and I spent 4 years in Newton in the business office there, and went for a promotion for the director business manager position in Canton, and I've been there for the last 2.5 years.
It says that Newton was September 19th through...
Down below too, though.
It starts in
Just
2017.
different positions,
So
same school.
yeah, I was promoted within...
And these are the different titles he had in those businesses.
Thank you. Secondary, and my follow-up, what assurances could we feel we would have that 2 to 5 years from now, you wouldn't be in the same itch, so to speak?
Yeah, so superintendent reached out to me. I really, I don't have to leave my current position. It's not something that I'm running from at all. But after meeting, and interviewing here, it's a place that I think that I truly want to be. I think there's a very strong leadership team here that I'm excited to be a part of. I'm looking for a home. I have a long amount of career left, and I live close by. It's just a 20-minute drive, and so I'm really looking for somewhere to be for an extended period of time.
I believe I saw it in here, but just to reiterate, you are MCPPO certified.
I'm MCPPO certified. I have my superintendent's license and my business manager's license from DESE.
So again, that was one of the attractions too, because we're on the project.
Right.
I mean, there's not a lot of folks out there that have those levels of certification as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, David, sorry.
I was looking over, well, first, Mr. Marshall, I just want to appreciate you coming out and, I was looking over your resume and certainly have a plethora of experience, and I'm glad that you're here and you're interested to being a candidate for this position. Looking over the resume or recommendation here, they were referring to a little bit about your experience navigating through MSBA in the project pertaining to the new middle school. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience doing that?
Yeah, so I have experience both. I was in Natick as the food service director when we moved into a new high school, so I saw that process through. It's a building that looks exactly like this one that we're standing in today. In Newton, I was part of 3 building projects, one that was state funded and 2 that were locally funded, and currently we're in the process, we're about a year and a half, 2 years behind the process here in Canton, just getting into schematic design at this point. So very familiar with the process and the back end, reporting process as well. So it's something that I am familiar with.
Steve, just for this committee's sake, because it was a win for us for the new middle school, for a 675-person middle school. Canton's looking for a 1,000-person middle school, correct?
That is correct.
What's the tag on that? What's
the latest price tag right now is we're looking around $230 million.
So bargain, 135, people of Whitman, 235 right now for Canton. So when I spoke to his superintendent about that, we spoke over the summer, and I said, we are in a project. Steve's very familiar with that. We're ahead of the game right now, but again, he can maneuver right into working with MSBA, and your architect is AI3.
Yeah.
So they know Troy already.
Same architect.
And just one follow-up question,
Yes,
if you guys don't mind. And just kind of further reading a little bit more, I see it's from Megan Byrne, I believe this. Okay, Ms. Byrne had mentioned that you had restructured your budget process over in Canton. And I know tonight we were talking about the great job that Mr. Stanbrook has done. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal and the best budget book I've seen since I've been here. Could you tell me a little bit about, how you would go about restructuring the budget process here and what you would look to approve and kind of what your viewpoint is on that, more or less?
Yeah, so some fantastic documents that were shared tonight. I think a very transparent process. That's really, I think, what Megan was referencing, that prior to me getting to Canton, there was many community members and a lot of outreach that the process might not have been as transparent as it should have been. Not that anything was technically being hidden, but just the way documents were presented, not in an easily readable format for those that might not understand finance. We're talking about multi-million, it's a lot. It's a lot to digest. And so almost dumbing down some items, providing charts, graphs, and different items so that it can be more easily understood by the general public, which is important. We're primarily handling taxpayer dollars, and it's important that our taxpayers understand where those funds are going. I think the reports that were shown tonight clearly show that. I mean, you're seeing every single line item, line by line. So that's really the start. There's obviously work that needs to be done with the financial software system here, and so that is really where we would need to starting to migrate from some of these Excel manual created documents into utilizing the software to help better provide that information to the committee and to the public. I've been part of two, redesigns of chart of accounts in two other districts, and so I'm familiar with that process as well. And we almost have a blank slate in a sense to start and create, and would just continue to build upon what has already been done over the last 4 to 5 years.
Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, Jeff, is there an ETA on the software?
So we're actually getting really frustrated with Munis and looking
Okay.
at two different systems.
Okay, so we don't know, and so you might be coming into a job without software?
Right.
You're aware of this?
We should have something.
fully aware.
Okay.
We've talked.
Because it
but
seems
we're
like it's a
looking-
very stressful thing.
It's a very stressful thing, and the customer support for us is we're a small district.
Yep.
Small fry. So we're actually actively looking at two different systems that
Okay.
we can probably.
So hopefully, when he comes in, we will have new software?
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay.
I just,
Fred was mentioning Dawn.
full disclosure.
Are you a member of MASBA?
I am.
Sort of experience with Munis, but, so you do have experience with Munis?
I do have experience with Munis. I've been using Munis for about 15 years.
Okay. What are your thoughts on it?
So Munis is a very comprehensive software program. It can basically do everything. I think the more complicated software programs are, the more they're able to provide to you, the harder they are to use. And so that is really, that would be my take on Munis. It is not the easiest platform to use because of its capabilities. So you can lose some capability and get something that is more user-friendly, depending on, what the needs of the district are. But I'm very comfortable with Munis, and it's really just being able to work with what is in there. The redesign of the chart of accounts is what I think is most important, and that work is well underway.
And last but not least, regional versus municipal.
Yeah, so there's certainly a learning curve in terms of moving from a municipal district to the regional. There's aspects of the regional that I have seen in other places. For example, Newton holds all of its own benefits on the district side, on the school side. So, I've been part of that. I've worked very closely with our town partners in Canton over the last 2.5 years to really learn and understand, bonding, borrowing, working with the Department of Revenue, different aspects of the job that do pertain but are managed on the other side. Again, it's really building those relationships. I think that's no different here with the regionals, although how assessments work and how ultimately things are funded might be differently. The relationships are key in making sure that we continue to grow together.
Okay. Dawn?
Sure. Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Just going back about 4 or 5 years when you were in Newton on your resume, you held the position of Grants and Business Analyst. So anything off the top of your head, can you share your former experience in finding grants or searching grants, whether they're federal, state, private?
Yeah, so we were managing about $16 million in grants that came from a variety of different sources. So it really just depends. I think following COVID, the grant market is just not as great as what it was in the time that I was in Newton. Certainly from a private standpoint, I think, a lot of organizations are struggling with, fundraising and the impact of the potential future of the economy and how that plays into grants and, private funds. So I was writing grant applications when I was in Newton, state, federal, and private grants, and that was really my charge when I started there. And it's, still something that, I'm willing to do and I can do. And it's just a matter of what what is out there, and the demographics of the district really have a huge impact on what your eligibility requirements are for many of the state and federal grants.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Stephen?
Well, I just want to say, I think you, not only on your resume, but the questions from colleagues really shows your professionalism and what a perfect fit you could be.
Thank you.
Here. Just as a side, I did try to hire a teacher last night from the FinCom. I won't try that again.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so you need to vote.
Yeah, why not? Yes.
Could I have a
I'd like to.
motion?
motion to support with successful contract negotiations. I'm sorry, Stephen J. Marshall for the position of school business manager.
Second.
Okay. Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
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 Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Michelle? Yes. And me, yes.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you.
I'll shoot you a text and we can meet up.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
We thank you for
Thank
working
you.
for free for the first year.
Right. You didn't know that. That's in there. That's the
The
suggestion.
hardest job probably was the hockey coach for
He
you
doesn't know
12.
about that. Thanks, Stephen.
Been there.
Move to
Yeah.
close the meeting.
Okay, move to go into executive session. Close. Excuse, no, there's nobody here left.
Anyone that wants to say anything?
Nope.
So motion to go to executive session?
Second?
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Michelle? Myself, yes.
Take a stretch.